a production of the New Jersey Courts.
New Jersey is often overshadowed by its neighbors New York City and Philadelphia. But being a peninsula, the Garden State stands out, from its mountains in the northwest to its farms in the south, from the industrialized cities in the northeast to the sun and fun of the Jersey Shore. New Jersey is also one of the most diverse states in the country. Nearly 45% of New Jersey's 8.9 million residents are people of color, and New Jersey has the third largest population of foreign-born citizens in the nation. New Jersey's judiciary is today a national leader in case law, court administration, and responding to changes in society. But it wasn't always that way. New Jersey, one of the 13 colonies, originally had a court system based on the English colonial system, and that history influenced its court structure into the 20th century. By 1948, New Jersey had one of the most confusing and archaic court systems in the United States. Litigants waited for years for their day in court, often because they filed their case in the wrong court. Then Governor Alfred Driscoll and Arthur T. Vanderbilt, a prominent attorney and judicial reformer, advocated for change. In November 1947, citizens voted to change the state's constitution. In the process, they transformed New Jersey's court system from one of the most detested in the nation to one of the most respected.
The Constitution created a system where it was a more unified court system, subject to the control of the Supreme Court and Chief Justice, but also able to decide cases without them being dismissed because one court didn't have jurisdiction or the other didn't have jurisdiction. The other very unique part of the New Jersey Constitution gives to the Chief Justice individual and personal responsibilities separate from the Supreme Court. And the Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice alone, after consultation with assignment judges and others, assigns the judges to the positions in which they sit, to the Appellate Division, to the Law Division, to the Chancery Division. He designates the assignment judge. He designates the presiding judge.
When I came, I was the first woman Chief Justice. It seemed just a logical progression. More and more women were coming out of the law schools and were available, had been 10 years at the bar, and were available to be named as judges, were available, those that had made it into the court system for promotion. We had had no women assignment judges, head judges in the courthouses before I came. I was fortunate to be able to appoint the first and then additional women head judges. We had very few, I can't remember now, but maybe one or two presiding judges, judges of different parts, that is the criminal part, the civil part. And there were judges who were talented and were available and able to be appointed at that time.
As the person responsible for appointing assignment judges, the chief judge of each county, I appointed the second African-American assignment judge in the state's history, and a wonderful man, did a terrific job. I had 4 appellate division appointments in that year, 4 that I had to fill. And I filled those 4 seats with not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 women. And I'm pleased that I did that. And I made those decisions not exclusively because they were women. That was probably a factor in some of the situations. But I did it because they were fine judges who deserved to be and turned out to be fine appellate division judges. Reflecting, I think, the apolitical nature of our courts and the diligence that everyone, including governors and legislatures, particularly our governors, have shown with respect to the process, we have approximately the same number of Democrats and Republicans serving as judges. There's always been an unwritten rule or tradition whereby there is, again, an approximate number, of approximately the same number. We also have, for example, on our Supreme Court, a tradition unwritten, which the governors, as I understand it generally, and as I recall generally, have always honored, of no more than 4 members from any one political party.
When Alaska and Hawaii became states in 1959 and 1960, respectively, they looked to New Jersey when they developed their own state courts. New Jersey's judicial branch also formed an administrative office of the courts, the first of its kind in the nation. Most states in the country have since followed New Jersey's lead, and today have an administrative office and an administrative director of the courts.
Because of the Supreme Court's power, I think everybody will acknowledge that the administrative office in New Jersey has more responsibility and authority than even the federal. Ed McConnell was administrative director through the Weintraub days, and in 1973, he left New Jersey and he was the first director of the National Center for State Courts, which is an entity that advises state courts. And I think he was responsible for the proliferation and creation of administrative offices throughout the country.
The administrative role of the Chief Justice is a powerful one and an important one. That would be impossible to carry out without the administrative director has been, in my experience, a person of high integrity and of great experience. And we've been lucky, and Chief Justices have been able to persuade extraordinary people to do that job.
An administrative office makes sure that new innovations, statutes, rules, decisions get out to judges, are the subject of education to keep the judiciary on top of new innovations and decisions and rules. And also, from the other side, to make sure the system knows of the problem areas and areas in need of attention.
New Jersey's Supreme Court, led by Chief Justices Arthur Vanderbilt, Joseph Weintraub, Pierre Garvin, Richard Hughes, Robert Willentz, Deborah Ports, James Zazali, and Stuart Rabner, has issued decisions for more than 70 years in cases that have influenced law around the country, including in the areas of witness identification, affordable housing, and funding for education.
I always made it clear, verbally and in my written form, that I feel very strongly genetically connected to the underprivileged, to the poor, to the weak and downtrodden. To say otherwise would be to deny my own early existence. And people who try to run away from their early and important existence generally encounter many problems in life and would have been ashamed to do so. I have no shame or no reservation about acknowledging that I think poor people are entitled to equal justice, and I wanted them to feel that the poor as well as the rich had a voice on the court. I'm not suggesting remotely that I was the only one with such a voice, but I was under the impression that I probably had the strongest foundation in poverty and segregation and so forth that should make me a bit more sensitive and sensible about these issues. I'm very proud to have been there, and I'm proud of some of the things that we were able to accomplish.
It's interesting, we didn't have a proper Supreme Court prior to 1948. But pretty quickly, the New Jersey Supreme Court came to be recognized nationally as one of the more innovative and creative state Supreme Courts in the country. There was no good legal answer to the question of whether an incompetent, comatose person could have their life support discontinued. Because there was no law in New Jersey on this question, the New Jersey Supreme Court had to figure out what to do. And it was an immediate problem facing this family. And the court decided the life support could be discontinued. Interestingly, the court called on the legislature to take this very difficult and controversial issue up and pass a law on it as the elected representatives. It took over 40 years for the New Jersey legislature. So the case got back to the New Jersey Supreme Court in 1983. We called that Mount Laurel II. And the court acted aggressively to put in place a remedial structure that included specially designated judges to hear these cases quickly. And the court reiterated its decision that exclusionary zoning that kept out affordable housing from New Jersey communities was unconstitutional under the state constitution. And that litigation is, of course, ongoing today as well. So this Mount Laurel I and Mount Laurel II were the first cases like that in the United States. And the New Jersey Supreme Court took the time to look into the science that had been developed about the problems with eyewitness identification, including racial disparities, the problems with cross-racial identification, but as well many, many other scientific conclusions about the unreliability of memory that's used in eyewitness identification. The court took that and set forth a variety of detailed new guidelines for the use going forward of eyewitness identification. That case was noticed all around the United States and still serves as a model for states that are going to attempt to make eyewitness identification in criminal trials more fair and more reliable.
New Jersey's Constitution grants the Supreme Court authority over the admission and licensing, regulation and discipline of attorneys, the discipline of the judges in the state, and approval of court rules.
One of the court's responsibilities is the discipline of lawyers and judges. And it's not true that In every state, the Supreme Court has that power, but it does clearly in New Jersey.
New Jersey's courts, with its partners at all levels of government and the private sector, continues to serve as a national leader with innovative programs to help citizens in all walks of life, including veterans and seniors. New Jersey's judiciary is a leader in criminal justice reform, which has evened the playing field so that individuals accused of low-risk crimes do not sit in jail because they can't afford bail, and reducing the number of juveniles in detention through investment in youth, families, and communities, as well as Recovery Court, which has proven effective in helping participants reclaim their lives.
I've spoken about the importance of the decisions that the court makes, that the Supreme Court in New Jersey gets cases that are hard. There's no question about it. It takes hard cases. As I've said before, cases that are at the junction of what's happening out in the world where things are changing and we're viewing things differently. We decided cases that had to do with those important issues. That included voting rights, that included gay rights, gay marriage, same-sex marriage.
New Jersey's judiciary, more than 70 years after it was formed, has been and continues to be a national model in helping protect its seniors, connecting veterans with services, and helping people overcome drug and alcohol addiction, while resolving related criminal charges.
Courts are responsible for administering justice in a way that grants everyone equal access. That requires a court system that all people can understand and navigate. In the early part of the 20th century, litigants who had cases in New Jersey's courts were often caught in a web of confusion. Arthur T. Vanderbilt, the first Chief Justice under the modern New Jersey Constitution, envisioned a more efficient and equitable court system that allowed cases to be resolved fairly and expeditiously. Chief Justice Vanderbilt's vision was realized in 1948 with the establishment of a centralized court system and one of the nation's first administrative offices of the courts. Today, we continue to look for ways to improve our court system to eliminate disparities and remove institutional obstacles to justice. Each day, the judges and staff of the New Jersey Judiciary work hard to ensure that we provide people the opportunity to resolve their disputes in an environment that allows equal access to all. The ongoing transformation of the New Jersey judiciary continues today with efforts to reform the criminal justice system by removing long-standing barriers to justice and to implement new initiatives for our most vulnerable citizens. We are stewards of a proud legacy, and we will continue to work to ensure that the court system serves us all in the pursuit of justice.